Warning. This podcast may contain offensive language, harsh criticisms of religion, the occasional political rant, and science talk, which some see as alternative facts.
In fact, I don't even like the multiverse, but I've learned to force my beliefs to conform to the evidence of reality. That's where science differs from religion.
Now, I am absolutely convinced that the main source of hatred in the world is religion.
If you base the design of rockets on science, they reach the moon. It works. Bitches.
Welcome to the Recklessly Skeptical Podcast.
Hey guys, this is Matt.
This is Josh.
And this is Joe.
Yeah, that's me, Joe.
Cool. Well, today's February 5th, 2017. Thanks for joining us
On this Super Bowl Sunday.
Super Bowl Sunday.
Super Bowl Sunday.
Let's hope the Patriots get their asses kicked.
Yeah. I don't follow football, and I see that everyone's going for the Falcons.
Because we all hate the Patriots.
Because everyone hates the Patriots. It's not that they're rooting for the Falcons; they just hate the Patriots.
Well,
Yeah.
the Falcons are cool. I like Matt Ryan and stuff. So,
But they're in Atlanta.
Go Falcons!
Atlanta is one of those really conservative states, kind of like Utah. I guess we should pity them more than anything.
yeah. We pity them. All right. So our stolen thought. Well, Josh gave me a book yesterday, Carl Sagan's Billions and Billions. So I thought it was good to pull a quote from there.
Why aren't you reading directly from the book?
Dude, have you ever done a quote from a book? It kind of sucks.
Oh,
This is a lot easier.
you're just holding your phone,
And the book's sitting
the
right
book
next to
is right next to you. It's
I haven't read it yet.
oh, okay.
All right, here we go. Quote, I would love to believe that when I die, I will live again, that some thinking, feeling, remembering part of me will continue. But as much as I want to believe that, and despite the ancient and worldwide cultural traditions that assert an afterlife, I know of nothing to suggest that it is more than wishful thinking, end quote.
Yeah, I wonder. That sounds familiar. I wonder if we've done that one before, but it's a good one anyways. Because he's right. What do we have besides hope that there's some sort of afterlife? There's nothing. It's kind of just bullshit.
Yep.
Yeah, I wish there was an afterlife. I don't want to die and just be non-existent. But you look at reality and it's like, well, that's probably it. So
Yeah. There's nothing, like you said, there's nothing to suggest that there is an afterlife.
Even
Yeah.
then, what's his name? Not Dawkins, but God, I'm so bad with
Daniel
names.
Dennett?
No.
Christopher Hitchens?
Yes.
Okay.
Would you really want to live in an afterlife with the fucking Saddam Hussein type of God, essentially?
Oh, no, if it was the Christian God and it was an afterlife, I'd be like,
Praise Jesus.
Yeah, I don't think I could do this.
What did he call it? A celestial North Korea?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a funny but somewhat analogous thing. Because, if that is true, I wouldn't want that. And that's the question. How do you have free will if you can't sin in heaven, right? So we get lobotomized and become these perfect servants of God according to some forms of Christianity?
You won't want to sin, Josh.
That makes no sense.
I know.
That makes no sense.
It's like
It's circular, because
the
then you
thing-
can say, well, why couldn't we just make it the same down on earth? Well, then you wouldn't have free will. Okay, well, then how does he do it in heaven? It's this circular reasoning that makes no fucking sense.
Yeah, and some of the things I like about me is the swearing, cursing, sex-wanting person that I am.
Boozing,
I like that about you too, Josh.
sex addict, coke addict, beer addict. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, those are some of my best qualities.
All right, guys. So what is a pastor that wrote a book about being a better man and a guy who got busted banging somebody else's wife and had to run out of the house naked, what do they have in common?
I'm guessing it was the same guy.
It was the same guy.
That's awesome.
So Pastor Jermaine Simmons stood before his congregation and asked for forgiveness, but he also tried to reconcile the man his
Parishioners,
had known for a decade, with the adulterer being laughed at in churches and the media. Since he took over a pastor in 2005, more than 4,000 people had joined Jacob Chapel Baptist Church in Tallahassee. It had added 27 ministries, focusing efforts on the homeless in Florida's capital, and ministering to youth. So that's good, helping the homeless, I guess. And Simmons had just released his first book, I Need a Man, a Bible-based paperback on modeling godly manhood. Then Simmons' affair with another man's wife went public in dramatic fashion. On January 17th, the 36-year-old pastor, a married father, found himself cowering naked behind a fence, hiding from a gun-toting husband who stumbled on the affair, police say.
Oh.
Isn't that crazy? What I want from God, I have already received. That's his forgiveness.
And
Simmons told his congregation 5 days later. Isn't that such a fucking cop-out?
Yeah, and I think that it's what I want from God. So he's got God's forgiveness, but fuck the other dude.
Yeah.
No, this is hilarious. I love stories like this because it's one of those things that you can laugh at. Like it's part of the human condition to want to have sex and
Or to
some of
punch
these-
a Nazi.
Yeah, and some of these things come out in such a way. Usually, like when you hear stories about pastors and sex, it's like horrifying because usually there's children involved when it makes the news. But this is just funny to laugh at.
Yeah. It does get kind of sad because there are kids around. But according to a Tallahassee police report, officers were called to the Sienna Square apartments by a woman who said her husband had a gun and was looking for her lover. The naked man behind the fence was Simmons, who was also her pastor, she told officers. She wasn't sure where her husband was, but he was angry and armed. So he went over to her house to help with a business and patents and all this. And her kid was at school and got sick. So the school tried to call her, but she wasn't answering because she was too busy banging the dude on her kid's bed.
Yeah.
So they called the husband. He went and picked the kid up and was taking the kid home and then walked in on them fucking.
Oh, really?
So the pastor, naked, runs out of the house, leaves his keys, pants, wallet, and everything, runs out, jumps a fence, and is hiding in some bushes. And she, like, begs him to not go look for him. He leaves mad. He grabs the dude's pants and keys and wallet and told her, like, I'm going to go to the church. I'm going to tell everybody on Facebook.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to. So blasting it on Facebook, I think, is while an immature way, it's a somewhat appropriate way. I don't like the gun wielding and chasing him around.
He didn't get charged because they said he never pointed the gun at his wife or never. He just had the gun on him. So he didn't get charged with anything.
Good.
One of the parishioners had to go pick up the pastor before he got his wallet and pants and shit. So
wait, the cops didn't pick him up, or did they just?
I don't know if maybe the cops found him and then he somehow called. I don't know, but they said a parishioner had to come get him, but that was before he got his pants and all that.
Oh, okay.
So I'm sure he was like sitting in this person's car who he's the pastor of the church and he's fucking naked.
I'm sure the cops probably gave him a one of those towels or one of those
like a medical
like
gown?
a blanket or something, because they have those like thick blankets that they'll put around people in accidents or whatever, Are you okay? Here, we'll put this blanket around you.
Oh, yep. So that's that. And this article, it's from the Washington Post. You can go check it out. He was apologizing to his church, and somebody in the audience lifted their camera up, their phone, and recorded him apologizing. So
Was it a tearful apology, or was it like God's forgiven me, you guys should too?
I only watched like 10 seconds of it,
I hope
honestly.
it
I
was more like a
fuck this guy.
Baptist, God will forgive me.
Yeah,
No,
and
it's
it's
my sin.
It's crazy
It seemed calm.
It seems
Oh,
it's
okay.
crazy that God has forgiven him already, though. Like,
I know.
usually there's some sort of penance time or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's still like leading the congregation. I mean, it's his fucking job, I guess.
I wish I could have seen video of him like running around naked, like trying to hide and stuff.
Are you saying you want to see naked men running around?
Well, like running from a
The-
gun-toting man, like knowing that he's a pastor,
That just wrote a book on being a good man.
Yeah, yeah. And then just seeing the video of it, like how ironic that would be. That would be so funny. Him just like scurrying through the bushes, like maybe a helicopter footage. Him like,
Oh no!
yeah. All right, so it's my turn, I guess.
Let's do it.
All right, so this is coming from Reuters, okay? This is a very, very, very serious article. You
Okay.
guys, okay?
Waiting for it.
Waiting for it.
It's super serial. Okay? All right. Here we go. Adult swaddling therapy fad hits Tokyo. Bet you didn't see that coming.
I want to go.
All right, so wrapped up from head to toe in a white bag and gently rocked from side to side, 5 Japanese mothers are hopeful Tokyo's latest health trend can cure their post-pregnancy aches and pains.
That's so crazy.
According to its exponents, Atanamaki, which translates to adult wrapping, was devised by a Kyoto midwife who thought replicating how children are swaddled at birth could help mothers overcome post-labor shoulder and hip pain. The 5 mothers at a recent session in Tokyo lay on their backs and their knees on their chests, bundled up in white cloths. Staff then helped them rock over cushions.
I hope this becomes a thing in America.
Dude, me too. I'll so go do it.
There's some pretty funny pictures, too.
I'll just come over here. Hey, Matt, wrap me up, bro. Rock me. Rock me, bro.
Diane comes home. What are you doing?
Shh. It's adult swaddling.
He's sleeping.
Shh. He's sleeping.
Yeah.
It felt warm. And there was this feeling with my body, said one mother who tried the 20-minute session. 20 minutes? That ain't long enough.
I don't know how much.
You know who I
how
think
long I'd want to be like swaddled in
You know,
a fucking bag.
you know who I guarantee, like, what demographic of people I guarantee would be, like, way into this?
Conservatives?
Politicians.
Yeah, totally politicians.
But they would want to be getting like spanked.
Yeah.
Spank me now. I've been bad. Oh, my God. I've never experienced this before, so it's quite hard to describe properly.
I would imagine.
Not everyone is a fan. Chiropractor Shiro Oba was skeptical about its powers of healing and encouraged mothers with back pain to visit a physician. Quote, there may be cases where people with asthma may find it easier to breathe in that position, but once the cloth is off, it's the same thing, said Oba. But apart from that, I just can't think of how people can benefit from this even as a form of reflexology or exercise. So yeah, adult swaddling people.
We need to. So Matt needs to download the picture and use it on the thing. But yeah, adult swaddling. Hopefully coming to a town near you.
Yeah. We should just get a picture of one of us being swaddled.
If you volunteer.
And then
I don't
the
think
other
there's a
two
blanket.
can be like rocking you.
I don't think there's a big enough blanket for me.
Yeah.
Josh is pretty tall.
Yeah.
Super tall.
Get some extended king size bed sheets, I guess.
Yeah, we'll do California King for you.
How tall are you, Josh?
6'6".
6'6".
Yeah, it's like 6'6.5", but I round down because I'm too tall that I don't need to compensate.
Yeah, see, I round up. Like 5'8.5". I just say 5'9".
I think I'm getting shorter. When I was in the Army, I was 6 foot and a quarter inch.
Yeah.
I went to the doctor a few weeks ago, and I was like under 6 foot.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I don't. Maybe their thing was off or something. I don't know.
Or maybe you were just never that tall.
Hey, at least you're not 5'9".
All right, so
Now it's Josh.
my story, and this is going to be something I want to do recurringly, because I think Gallup does a good job with this layout. So Gallup does a daily Trump job approval, and obviously, like, you can't trust any given poll on any given day. It's best to do an aggregate of polls. But this should give you somewhat of a general outline of what's going on. So when Donald Trump became president, he was at exactly a tie at 45 disapproval, 45 approval. And now he is at a 50% disapproval and a 44% approval rating. Also, real unemployment has gone up to 9.4%. Let me see. The good jobs has gone down, which is for the percentage of adult population. It's gone down 0.1%. Engaged at work is 34.5. Economic confidence is down 2 points. It used to be at 7, and it's down to 5. Now that's a huge drop, and that's part of the reason. If you pay attention to the markets, that's part of the reason that we've taken a big hit this week.
Economic confidence. So people willing to take risks and stuff like that, they're not going to do so. Jobs will fall out.
Well,
whatever.
it's talking about putting money in the stock market.
Oh,
If
okay.
you're confident, and I think this one is almost exactly tied. So one of the things in economy that you learn pretty early on is that the stock market is not the economy. They're
Yeah.
two completely separate things. Job reports, unemployment, the stock market, the value of businesses, the output of the GDP of America. Those things are the economy. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of things. But economic confidence means like the outlook towards the future of our economy, which I think this one is pretty much tied to the stock market because you see this drop or the stock market drop as the confidence drops. So it's dropped 2 points, which is a pretty big deal, meaning that it's like a hold but be prepared to sell market.
Oh, okay.
So for those who own stocks, am I the only stock owner here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I check it daily.
My old boss, he does stocks. He has like 14 grand in there he's playing with, and he's always winning and losing.
Yep, I'm at 10 G's, baby. So, all right, Matt, I think it's you.
Let's do it. So another one from the Washington Post. So apparently,
Isn't that fake news?
yeah, fake news.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, you have to be Christian to truly be American. How do you guys feel about that?
Bullshit.
Yeah.
So about 1/3 of all Americans think that you have to be a Christian to truly be an American, despite the history of religious liberty that dates back to the nation's very earliest days. In a timely survey released Wednesday afternoon, just as the United States is debating the merits of suspending immigration from 7 majority Muslim countries, the Pew Research Center asked residents of numerous nations what it takes to truly belong to their countries. Americans were far more likely than residents of other countries included in the survey to say that religion was key to sharing in the national identity. 32% of Americans said one should be Christian to really be American, compared to just 13% of Australians, 15% of Canadians, and 15% of Europeans who felt the same way about belonging to their homelands. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
This is down. This is actually way down from like 2007. So I'm
Really?
actually optimistic about
Yeah,
it.
it is getting better, but that's still
Yeah.
it's still high. So the same number of Americans, 32%, said that being born in the United States is key to being an American. More Americans, 45%, said that sharing national customs and traditions was important, and many more, 70%, said being an American meant speaking English. And what's interesting, that's obviously wrong, but a lot of the other countries, that was all on par. They all felt the same way with those numbers as we do, but the only one that was weird compared to the other countries was the religion one.
Yeah, and
I can understand that, though, you speak our language, speak,
yeah, and if I were to put
be a part of us.
If I were to put a thing that's important, it'd be understanding civics. Like that's what matters to me. Like because that's a test that any immigrant has to understand. They have to understand civics and U.S. history in order to become a United States citizen.
Yeah,
and that's something we should be learning in grade school, but we don't. Like we don't get a good idea of what civics means. Like we get the basic, you have a judicial, legislative, and executive branch, but that doesn't really tell you much. I mean, we're going to get into a story where like civics matters, but in order to be able to talk about politics in some informed way, you need to understand the Constitution, how the branches of the government get their powers from the Constitution, and how those play out in the checks and balances and stuff. And it's kind of sad that the best thing that people remember about civics is from the songs from Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so I just want to read 2 more paragraphs.
Okay.
So while religious minorities have lived in the United States since before the American Revolution, Thomas Jefferson defended the rights of Muslims, and George Washington wrote a famous letter guaranteeing religious liberty to the Jews of Rhode Island. Still, pastors and politicians alike have frequently described the United States as a Christian nation. Republicans, who are themselves more likely to be Christian, said at a higher rate that one need be Christian to be American. 43% compared to 29% of Democrats and 26% of independents.
God,
So 43% of Republicans think you have to be a Christian.
29% of Democrats, that's outstandingly high because they're supposed to be the liberal party. And that's like, they should know that that's absolutely not the case. And that
Democrats are changing.
That there's atheists and Muslims among them, and Jews, especially like the Jewish wing in the United States. Most Jews are democratic and are want a two-state solution, and don't really like who's the guy who's running it, Netanyahu.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I mean, like, it's obviously you don't have to be Christian to be American.
No. And here, one more paragraph. One's own religion also strongly affected the answer. Pew found that 50% of white evangelical Protestants thought it was very important to be Christian in order to be American, while 29% of white mainland Protestants, 27% of Catholics, and just 9% of people unaffiliated with a faith felt the same way. So isn't that interesting? People who are unaffiliated, 9% still thought, yeah, you got to be a Christian.
Hey, you lied to me.
I know, I said 2, and then I read another one.
Yeah, no, that is, like, I'm not Christian, but I'm American.
I know,
but I'm not.
Like,
But you have to be Christian.
Yeah.
some dumb people were answering that question.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
No, I bet you those people were spiritual.
Oh,
Yeah, and it's.
I don't go to church, but I'm spiritual.
I don't
believe
follow
in
any
God.
religion, but I do believe in Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love when especially young, attractive women say that shit to me. 'Cause I just find it so fascinating. It's like, I can't believe you're saying these words.
Don't say that to me.
Well,
Now
no,
you're ugly.
No. It's not even that. It's like, man, she's so stupid that like it fascinates me. And so whenever I run into someone like that, I like talking to them because they're just. And that's like my loss of religion and belief in any sort of a God kind of like came into focus one time when I was talking to a born-again Christian. And it was just this absurd conversation we were having. And I was writing a paper on evolution, and we were talking about it. And he's like, and we got to the point where this was the first true creationist I'd ever met. And I was just like, you think the world is 6,000 years old? Tell me more, please.
Really?
Yeah.
And then,
Because I just wanted to hear how, because I mean everything he was saying was so demonstrably false, but he
believed it wholeheartedly, right?
And I was absolutely not aggressive. I was like, "That's interesting. I'm actually very fascinated. Please don't stop this conversation." But I would rebut him at the same time and be like, "Well, what about like all of the like he would talk about it? I'm like, what about all of this ecological evidence about like rocks that we have that are millions of years old and obviously so?" And like, well, God could have made them that way. I'm like, come on, keep going. I don't want you to
Tell
stop
me
talking.
more.
You're all like, this isn't real.
Yeah,
You're like,
like-
oh my God,
like-
this is hilarious.
Holding
it all in.
Yeah, it was just this mind blow. Like I was just, it was mind boggling. It was fascinating at the same time. The type of cognitive dissonance he was living with.
Well, speaking of, Matt, are you done with your?
Yep, it's all you.
All right. So Neil deGrasse Tyson, U.S. science illiteracy a serious threat. So this is coming from, what? Sorry.
Say what?
So, News and Record, and the story is by John Newsom at Greensboro.com. All right. So, Greensboro, the United States has plenty of challenges in front of it these days. The issue of greatest concern to perhaps... Sorry, I got to turn... Sorry. I always have such a hard time reading these because I'm like trying to speak into the microphone and turn my head towards my computer.
So Joe's microphone is set up in a pretty bad way. I actually freehold my microphone. I'm the only one who does that.
I'm thinking I might want to start doing that because it is a pain in the ass to read these articles, and it's like reading it out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah.
And stuff. It's a pain in the ass. Okay. The issue of greatest concern to perhaps one of the nation's most well-known scientists, Neil deGrasse Tyson, is Americans now know far too little about science. Americans overall are bad at science, scared of math, poor at physics and engineering, resistance to evolution, This science illiteracy, Tyson told a nearly sold-out crowd at the Greensboro Coliseum on Tuesday night, is a threat to the nation. The consequence of that is that you breed a generation of people who do not know what science is, nor how and why it works, he said. You have mortgaged the future financial security of your nation. Innovations in science and technology are the basis of tomorrow's economy. Tyson, the director of the Hayden Planetarium in New York, author of 10 books, and star of TV and radio shows about science, was the guest of the Guilford College Bryan series. Almost 3,400 people turned out to hear Tyson speaking for nearly 2 hours about science and science literacy. America's decline isn't unprecedented, Tyson said. Just look back 1,000 years ago at the Middle East, where math and science flourished in Baghdad. Algorithms were invented in the Middle East.
I think that's algebra.
Oh, algebra, sorry. Oh, my God. Okay, so...
we forgive you. You're reading out of the corner of your eye.
So algorithms were invented in the Middle East. So were Arabic numerals and numbers we still use today. I'm going to skip ahead a bit. Today, Tyson said to many Americans, mistake clouds for UFOs, believe in alien abductions, reject evolution, known to scientists as the foundation of biology, fear the number 13 and negative numbers, and freak out about the supermoons that really aren't any bigger than regular old full moons. See, and also, too, like, just the other day was Groundhog's Day. You know, and I posted a meme about this. It's like only in America will reject what's evolutionary and what is it? Climate change scientists. We will reject what the majority of what climate change scientists have to say, but then turn around and get our weather information from a fucking rodent. You know what I mean? It's a joke. So yeah, I know exactly where he's coming from. If national leaders and local school boards want to ignore science, Tyson said, that's fine with him. But he said, let's say he's the chief executive officer of a corporation that's looking for a site for its headquarters. It's not going to be in your state, Tyson said. The future companies need science literacy for their R&D, for advancements, for innovation, and so your state will fade among the 50. That's a consequence.
Yeah.
Hear, hear.
And we'll probably see this firsthand with Betsy DeVos as being, and she's not been confirmed yet. What you should do is get your senator's phone number, especially if they're Republican, and call in and say, hey, this is not acceptable. Betsy DeVos has no interest in actually helping our public education. She wants to do all of these vouchers so that people can go to charter schools and get religious education instead of regular education, which is just education based on facts. And she's going to try and
well, they're giving alternative facts.
Yeah, I know. And I have a story about that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But, it's just what's going to happen, and this is the same with abortion, same with a lot of these things. And I've read some actually pretty scary articles, and unfortunately we won't have time to cover the one that I read the other day, but they're going to try and take away abortion from women, but they're going to do it through without overturning Roe v. Wade, is what it sounds like. Because the guy who Donald Trump selected for the Supreme Court has a very strong leaning towards keeping precedents in place, but Roe v. Wade was stated fairly it wasn't very clear what was protected and what wasn't protected. They just said that you have to weigh the right to life versus the right to autonomy and privacy. Mm-hmm. So that's why they settled on that's why they settled on after two trimesters. But really, they settled on was viability, which means that as viability as children can live earlier and earlier into a pregnancy, that kind of throws the viability question out the window. And so what that means is that they can go up till the first viable child, which is not very far in, 4.5 months, instead of the 6 months that it used to be. And then that they're going to make all these stupid-ass regulations that make it so that it's impossible to have an abortion clinic. But the point of this is that as they strip away more and more because we're talking about education. Lost my train of thought, Joe.
We'll get back on it.
Okay, well, say what you were going to say.
I wasn't going to say anything.
You weren't going to talk about your story at all?
Oh, no.
Oh, but what it gets down to is you're going to have Republican states, and I remember now, you're going to have Republican states that have all of these negative consequences from what's going on now, to the point where businesses won't even be able to be confident in doing business there.
Yep.
Oh, just like Tyson said, if you reject science and then an educated business wants to, build a new plant or something, it's not going to be in your state.
North Carolina has taken a lot of a beating over their anti-LGBTQ laws and their unwillingness to protect transgender as a category. So that's why, like, the NBA didn't do one of their events there, and a number of other companies said we're going to pull out, and so there's kind of this business versus Republicans on this issue, on more progressive issues as far as social issues go.
I imagine their economy could drop drastically if enough people start pulling out and stop doing business there.
Yeah, but what sucks about this is then you have this population that's, like, stuck there. Like, they won't have the education to get out and make a meaningful life. They won't know any better. And that's part of the reason why I think, like, Trump got elected president. Like, we sit here in these rooms, but we're fairly educated. We're self-educated in a lot of senses. But people who don't have the means to go out and educate themselves or be current on social issues or understand civics, like what I was saying is important earlier, like, they don't understand the consequences that Trump brings. So, it's going
He just tells it like it is.
Well,
he's yelling at people, and he's yelling at other countries' leaders. He's so badass.
But
and
people,
it's like, dude,
people understands that he's describing part of the problem correctly, and that's one of the things that Clinton failed to do was state, hey, America, the middle class is suffering, and that's what Bernie Sanders was so good at, and that's why I think he would have won in a landslide. Because she was like, oh, America's we're on the rise, or our unemployment rate's going down, blah, blah, blah. But what she doesn't understand is that in living memory, people had high-paying jobs, and they think that Trump is more likely to bring those jobs back. And that doesn't make sense because those jobs aren't coming back. Either they've been automated or they've been sent overseas because we don't want to pay the prices of what it would cost to have American laborers do those jobs. Yeah. And they're not the best jobs. They're not the safest jobs. They're really not jobs that we really want back. What we need to do is get a more educated group of people in the STEM field and in civics and in those sorts of fields, so that way we have an educated economic class that can contribute and also get what they deserve out of it. Because at a $7.25 minimum wage,
that's not, you can't survive.
Yeah, and you can't educate. You can't go to college on that. You can't do a lot of things with the $7.25 wage, and you get mad because you think, well, my blue collar job has been taken away and shipped to China, and that's somewhat true. Again, it's somewhat that all these companies are going with automation because you don't need a human being to build a car anymore. For most of it, you don't need a human being to do a lot of this stuff. And that's why maybe some of these businesses will come back to America because of the automation, but it's not going to be people doing it. It's going to be people keeping up the machines and understanding how to program them better, or how to create websites, or how to create digital stuff. And if you're not willing to get computer literate, if you're not willing to research STEM stuff, if you're not willing to get in science, you're kind of fucked. Like, you're stuck where you're at until you go and get more education. And that's one of the reasons, that's what I thought Bernie Sanders' strongest point was, is that high school diploma used to be good enough. It used to be strong enough. And that's why, because it helped businesses here in America, that's the reason why businesses were willing to say, yeah, we should do public education for everybody, and we'll contribute.
Yeah.
And but now that we've gotten past that point where college education is required to be a solid contributor to this economy, like, really we need to make public colleges free.
Yeah, because, well, yeah, like, I've known so many people who went out and got a college education, and then, someone got a college education in art. And then just because they have the college education and they're have a bachelor's degree or whatever it is, they turned around and got a manager job at Target. You know what I mean? Making $23 an hour. And all they have is the college education in art, and that's the thing. I'm educated. I could probably manage something like Target and stuff like that, but
Sure.
I'm not college educated,
Yeah.
you know, and so I can't go get a high-paying job.
Yeah, and there's something to having a college degree which shows that you're willing and dedicated to go through the learning process, and also that you've got some post-high school education in a formal setting. And,
Yeah.
and so businesses value that even if it's not in the degree. And I think last time I looked at the stats, it was like almost 50-50 where you work in the field that your degree's in.
Yeah, see, and that's another thing, too, though. Like, I didn't want to go into extreme debt. I was like, I want to go to college, but, you know, I screwed around a lot in high school, so I can't get any scholarships. I can't get any grants, you know. And then if I did go get grants and loans and stuff, I'd have all this money I would have to pay back. And most of the time I was like, is it even worth it? You know, is it worth it if you...
But I mean, you've got a decent job. Like a lot
I
of
do
people,
have a decent job
A lot
right
of people
now.
don't even have that opportunity. Like,
Yeah.
and they don't have the opportunity on either side of the coin. And if you really wanted to stop, you could go get another, or stop working where you're working. You could go get a trade job because you have the resources to do so.
Yeah. But see, and I feel bad for a lot of people who don't have the resources, who don't have the opportunities and stuff. And yeah, what you're saying about Bernie Sanders wanting to make colleges, you know, tuition free, that would have been the best idea.
Sure.
I still think it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's something we should look for and push for.
Keep fighting for it.
Okay. And then I've got my story, I think, unless we want me to ramble on more about the unfairness of America. But
I think everybody knows.
Yeah.
Most people.
Okay.
They just don't know where to look.
And this is this is on the Washington Post, and so it must again be fake news. Kellyanne Conway cites Bowling Green massacre that never happened to prevent travel ban.
Yeah.
Written by Samantha Schmidt and Lindsay Bever. And just to read the beginning, Kellyanne Conway has taken alternative facts to a new level. During a Tuesday interview with MSNBC's Chris Matthews, the counselor to the counselor to the president defended President Donald Trump's travel ban to 7 majority Muslim countries. At one point, Conway made a reference to 2 Iraqi refugees whom she described as being the masterminds behind the Bowling Green massacre. Most people don't know it because it doesn't get covered, Conway says. The Bowling Green massacre didn't get covered because it didn't happen. There never was a terrorist attack in Bowling Green, Kentucky, carried out by Iraqi refugees or anybody else. And then continuing, it appeared initially that Conway was referring to 2 Iraqi citizens living in Bowling Green who were arrested in 2011 and eventually sentenced to federal prison for attempting to send weapons and money to al-Qaeda in Iraq for the purpose of killing U.S. soldiers, according to a statement from the Justice Department. So this gets us into a couple of different things. So first off, I don't know if she was lying or making it up. It was just so easy to fact check.
I just want to show you, Josh, that you can donate to the victims of the Bowling Green Massacre Victims Fund and stuff. But you can seriously donate.
No, click on the donate now. It's actually funny.
Is it?
Yeah, I decided. I've seen that website, and I decided to do that. And it brings you to ACLU.
That's awesome.
That's tight.
Yeah. So the 2 things that I want to point out. This is where Donald Trump did a ban on 7 countries based on countries that Barack Obama supposedly did the same. It wasn't similar. It wasn't similar at all what he did. He did not suspend visas, green cards, and other people who had rights to come into the country. What he did is he wanted to stop issuing new visas to people until he figured out what went wrong with this specific story. Because these guys did get in. They did get into the United States, and they got here legally, and they were funding al-Qaeda. And so he put a pause on people coming into the country from those 7 countries, and again, issuing new ways for them to get in until they figured out how these people got around the system. Because we have one of the longest vetting processes, and we still had a pretty long vetting process in place at the time. So what they did is the administration took the steps it needed to make sure that people like these 2 people didn't get in. But apparently, Kellyanne Conway is so ignorant of reality that she didn't mind stating something that she thought she knew, which was that there was a massacre at Bowling Green. So I unless you guys want to go further, I think it's time to take like a mid-show pause and play some music.
Was it dark day back in 011, like none I'd ever seen. Oh, why didn't I have just one more gun that day in Bowling Green? I gazed across those lollipop fields to the unicorn machine, when I saw the lie my enemy wields against our lovely Bowling Green. Oh, Bowling Green. I saw Obama raise his fist like a damn mujahideen, and a team of libtards, lip and wrist, attacked my Bowling Green. And the scientists sneered and the networks lied, and I saw a gay Marine. And untold white Americans died that day in Bowling Green. Oh, Bowling Green. Oh, why didn't we shut down that hall where the liberals convened? Why didn't we deport them all from our sacred Bowling Green? Bad hombres came from foreign lands just to kick us in the spleen. We need a hero, large in hands, to save our Bowling Green.
Large in hand.
Once girls were girls, and men were men. There was nothing in between. Please make America great again, starting with my Bowling Green.
And that was by Nick and Gabe on Facebook. That's fantastic.
That was incredible. I enjoyed that.
That was really good.
All right. Well,
All right. Well, I guess it's my turn.
Go ahead and talk, Matt.
So this has to deal with what Josh kind of mentioned earlier before we took that little break. So this is coming from Patheos. Republicans have filed a bill that would allow pastors to endorse political candidates in church. So basically getting rid of the Johnson Amendment. So just hours after Donald Trump told the audience at the National Prayer Breakfast that he would get rid of and totally destroy the Johnson Amendment, Republican legislators have filed a bill to do just that. If passed, it would give pastors the ability to endorse candidates from the pulpit while keeping their tax-exempt status. Isn't that fucking nice?
yep. Do you want to read more?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, as I wrote earlier, repealing the Johnson Amendment would be a horrible idea. Not just for our society, but for the church, too. Religious organizations already have the luxury of not paying taxes, and one of the requirements of that perk, just as with all nonprofits, is that they don't get to endorse candidates for political office. They can speak out against marriage equality, abortion, sex education, evolution, etc. All they want, but pastors can't tell their congregation, Jesus wants you to vote for the Republicans, so go do it. Did you want to say something, Josh?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot I want to say, but I want to make sure that you're closer to the end.
Okay, I'll read a little more. If the amendment did get repealed and churches became political arenas, it's hard to think some churches would ever do anything but promote candidates. Every service would become an in-person political ad. I doubt that's the game pastors want to play, since they see their calling as being above petty politics. Pastors could easily give up their tax exemptions and start directing people to the polls. There's a reason why they don't do that, but conservative Christians want it both ways, and Trump and his allies in Congress want to give it to them.
All right, so this is the biggest attack on so this is a huge attack on religious liberty, if you're interested in that, and it also is the biggest attack on separation of church and state that I've ever seen. So the Johnson bill essentially came into play and said, hey, we need to have a separation between church and state from the other side. The wall of separation that Thomas Jefferson talked about when he created his Separation of Church and State Act of Virginia was put in place to make sure that churches aren't that the state doesn't have anything to say about what you can talk about in church as far as like educating your group goes, but the church should also not have the ability to endorse a candidate. And this is one of the things that the only reason why I could stand the tax exemptions that they were getting is because they couldn't talk about politics the same way that like clubs can or groups can or things like that. It's infuriating. It makes me so mad that we're actually talking about making churches into political places where politicians can essentially and that's the thing. Right now, politicians can donate money to churches. So the church can take money from politicians, even though churches can't give money to politicians. They can take money from politicians as a tithing, quote unquote. Mm-hmm. But now what's going to happen is now all of these businesses that are corrupting our politics, if you're interested in your church at all, they're going to be now placing ads with your fucking church in a sense. Yeah. Because they can pay a tithing, and there's no laws against them paying a tithing to it. And so now what they can do is pay a tithing to have their specific candidate endorsed. That's just so stupid.
So Larry Decker from the Secular Coalition for America added to why it's a bad idea. And it's what you're saying, Josh. The repeal of the Johnson Amendment would unleash a new wave of dark money into the political system, effectively transforming houses of worship into the equivalent of religious super PACs.
It's like if you want to get money out of politics because of the corruption, this is no better. You know what I mean? This is the exact same thing. You know, and a lot of people are like, "Oh, my church isn't corrupt," and it's like, no, you don't understand. You know, just because you don't think your church is corrupt, it doesn't mean that it isn't, and it doesn't mean that there's some dark money floating around in there.
And that's the thing. Your church might not be corrupt, but if you take away the Johnson Amendment, where politicians can again pay tithing to a church, we're talking about a thing that will absolutely corrupt your church. If you think your church isn't corrupt now, and I'll give the benefit of the doubt that most churches are not corrupt and they're not pawns for politicians. What this does is this essentially says, guess what? We're going to give money to your church, and then your church is going to be our political place, or our place for a political advertisement.
And it doesn't even necessarily have to mean that that politician is going to give money to a church. Even if that church just, relates to that specific politician, that Republican most likely, then they are going to tell their parishioners to vote for him just because he is, their policies align. And they can possibly gain thousands or millions of votes without even money exchanging. But that's bullshit if the churches aren't paying taxes.
Yeah, and
pay your taxes, and then, you can say something.
And the other thing to think about is, so what if you disagree with your pastor about who you should vote for? Like, what if you disagree? All of a sudden, the pastor is going to have the ability to say, guess what? If you think you should vote for blue, then you're wrong. Or you think you should vote for red, then you're wrong. You're not a real Christian. And you're going to have to find a new congregation, and it's just going to be awkward for you. And so now all of a sudden congregations of churches are going to be based around political ideas. Yeah. Is that really what you want?
Instead of religion or God or whatever it is you think it might be.
And I remember squarely when Jesus said in the Bible, we should definitely choose political people together, right? That's in the Bible. But everybody should be against this. And the other thing is that all of a sudden, like when Donald Trump, you'll have... This is the part that I'm upset about because I don't go to any church. But you have Donald Trump who says, "Oh, I like Mormons," but you'll have politicians stating which religion that you should go to. Like this alignment of church and state would just be astounding. The laws, there would be no laws passed about it, but you'd have from the pulpit of your church, you'd have people saying certain politicians should be in place, and then from the pulpit of your political arena, they'll say, this is the church that you should go to. Like, do you really want that?
And that's going to make politics on the local level even harder. Like Utah, for example. If this passes, then somebody in Utah, if they're not Mormon, they won't get elected. Because I can guarantee you, all the churches, the Mormon church, they're going to tell you not to vote for this other guy because he's an atheist or he's a Catholic. no, this other candidate over here, that candidate's Mormon.
Yeah.
Vote for him.
Or the opposite. Like in Salt Lake City, we have a way lower than half of the population of Salt Lake City downtown is Mormon. So
Yeah, it's
if you
mostly
are
Catholic.
if you are a Mormon, then all of a sudden you're going to be at the disadvantage. Because people are going to say, no, I'm not going to vote for a Mormon because of all the political tricks that they're playing. Like, this is just so fucking stupid.
Yep.
It's bad news.
So let's hope it doesn't happen.
But it's going to happen. Via executive order or legislation, it's going to happen. Because the Republicans now control both houses of Congress, and they control the presidency. There's no way that this doesn't happen. The only thing that might uphold it is that as if the Supreme Court says no. And I'm not sure that they will, especially if Donald Trump gets 2 conservative justices in place in the next 4 years.
I keep seeing useful idiots in my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, this law, or appealing this law, or whatever, you know, these religious people, I'm sorry, a lot of religious people are just, they follow you blind. You know, if the pastor or the priest or the bishop says something, okay, yeah, whatever they say, you know. And so if the politician can donate money to the church and the church turns around and says, vote for this guy, most of these people are going to fucking do it. They're useful idiots. You know, there's not going to be any sort of reasoning or anything
on
there.
an individual level, I like to give people the benefit of the doubt that that they think of themselves. Most people think of themselves as critical thinkers, so I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. But that's why I raised the question: what if your pastor disagrees with you? What if he decides that he should single out the people who don't want to vote Republican or Democratic, depending on your pastor? Like, how would you feel going to church on a weekly basis? What if this is your favorite church? It's not a good scenario for anybody.
It really isn't.
All right, but that's all I got to say. And I probably repeated myself over and over again, but...
No, it was good.
Shit happens.
I heard you have to say something 3 times for it to stick.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Joe.
I got a science story.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Science.
Story. Joe.
No.
Joe.
Yeah,
Joe.
Matt.
No.
Yeah, I knew you'd do it. High five.
High five for stealing Bill Nye's shit.
What? You didn't say Bill. You said Joe.
We love you, Bill Nye.
Please come on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, and I was also going to mention something during the Neil deGrasse story. He's coming on the 15th to Utah.
Oh, really?
15th of February?
Yeah.
Oh, well, let's go see him.
How much are tickets?
Probably pretty expensive.
Yeah.
He's at one of the higher end places, so I wouldn't be surprised if they're $40-50 a pop.
Oh. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I can't afford that. Okay, so, yeah, this is a science story. Remains of soft tissue may have been found inside a 195 million year old dinosaur rib. Okay? I always say K. Just to make sure everyone's following along.
Tracking?
Yeah, you guys tracking? Okay. Researchers think they may have uncovered preserved soft tissue in the remains of a dinosaur that has been dead for 195 million years. The finding suggests that proteins are able to survive for at least 100 million years more than previously thought. If verified, this incredible finding could open up a whole new window into the study of long extinct animals. The discovery was found in the fossil of a, I'm going to destroy this, Luffigansaurus.
I'm sure that was spot on.
The Luffigansaurus.
Lufengasaurus. Yeah, maybe it was right. Okay, all right. Hey, we're trying here. We're trying. Okay, a common leaf-eating creature from the early Jurassic that reached up to 9 meters or 30 feet in length. On the inside of one of the rib bones, researchers think they have found traces of collagen, the structural protein found in skin and connective tissue, as well as potential remnants of blood. The researchers published in Nature Communications analyzed the chemical makeup of the possible soft tissue in the bone using what is known as infrared spectroscopy. This showed that the material was absorbing infrared light in the wavelengths that correspond with those of collagen. Not only that, but an iron-rich mineral in the bone could also be evidence of preserved blood, the researchers argue. I'm going to skip ahead because I like doing that. While on the surface, that may not sound very interesting, as we already know. Oh, well, you know what? I skipped too far ahead. While the results are exciting, they're not conclusive. The paper has come out at a time that another has also been released in the Journal of Proteome Research, in which researchers were able to properly isolate collagen proteins in an 80-million-year-old dinosaur fossil, which currently stands as the oldest identified protein. These results were also able to show that some of the proteins extracted were similar to that found in birds. Okay, now, while on the surface that may not sound very interesting, as we already know that birds are descendants from dinosaurs, it opens up an enormous possibilities. Oh my God. Okay.
Take a breath, Joe.
Yeah.
Take a breath.
It should now be possible to construct evolutionary trees of long extinct animals. Mammals as dinosaurs based not only on their autonomy, but also on molecular evidence. This is an extraordinary advancement in the field of paleontology, and while the holy grail of cloning may still be out of reach, the discovery is still pretty damn incredible.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be able to get any DNA from it, but
Yeah,
that would be cool.
Probably not. It's not likely.
Yeah, but still, now we have a better idea of the composition of a dinosaur.
Yeah, and if they can build that evolutionary tree, in more detail, like they're saying, that would be.
It gives
would
us
give
a
us
broader
more,
map.
a bigger understanding of life on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just showing Matt tickets for the show, and they're sold out, and the resale on the center stage on those Neil deGrasse Tyson tickets are $569.
Oh
Wait,
my God!
what?
Yeah,
$500?
$569.
And there's only 5 tickets.
Yeah, for sale.
I guess I'm going.
Baller.
Yep.
All right,
That's a bunch of horse shit.
It is. So this one is from Business Insider. It says, bald men look more successful, intelligent, and masculine, science says. And this is written by Valentina Resartaritis.
Oh my God.
We're fucking destroying these today.
Well, I mean, that's just a weird name because you want to. There's a vowel in between every letter. What do Jeff Bezos, Kenneth Frazier, and Steve Ballmer have in common? They are successful and also bald. Coincidence? Probably not. Men with bald heads are often seen more dominant and successful by everyone around them, according to a study by the University of Pennsylvania. An American scientist, Albert E. Manns, who also happened to be bald himself, conducted a study in 2012 with 59 subjects. He wanted to find out how people would react to men with shaved heads by showing them a series of pictures. The subjects got to see each photo twice, once with a man with a full head of hair and once the same man with the hair shaved off. The subjects reported that they thought the bald men were more dominant, bigger, and stronger.
Confirmation bias, maybe. Yep.
Yeah, and so it's a limited study. It's just kind of a funny story. But yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to look more, let me see.
Successful.
Yeah, more dominant, bigger, and stronger. You should shave your head.
More dominant, bigger, and stronger.
One of us should do that test. Matt, you want to shave your head?
I'll shave my head. Fuck it.
Go for a month and just see how people treat you differently. I mean,
when I've shaved my head, I feel like I intimidate more people. I'm not as approachable.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I've met people who are bald and who don't feel that approachable. Starting with my father, which may state that I have some sort of issues. But
you have some daddy issues going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so maybe there's something to it. It's a small study, but it was just kind of funny. But yeah, so those commercials where you see that guy shave his head before an interview, maybe that'll work.
Yeah.
Alrighty, guys. So I have a short video. It's about 40 seconds long. Mainly, listen to it, but make sure you're paying attention near the end, all right?
And just to describe, they're wearing trumpet shirts, and they're women in their 50s.
Yeah, and it's an older video, but I just saw it the other day and figured it was kind of funny.
Doesn't matter. She's she got overweight.
Right.
It's true.
She did. She gained
He
like,
wasn't
what, 50
lying.
pounds or something like that. He wasn't lying. The things he says are true.
If I
but
got
it's
overweight and
just-
someone said it, oh well, you're right.
I think Hillary is just looking for something for him because she can't seem to find anything on him. Don't play into her stuff. Let her try to get you ruffled, but don't let her ruffle you. Just keep on point about what you're going to do because we love it, what you're saying. We all feel the same way. We always have for years. So we finally have this God that's going to come down and help us all.
You just referred to Trump as a god.
Yeah, he is. Well, like she said, Jesus, then Trump.
What?
What?
This God that's going to come down and save us.
God, I'm so
First-
glad we played that lingering song. God, that made me laugh so hard.
First Jesus, then God. Or first Jesus, then Trump, which is God, apparently.
Yeah, who is oh God. He's got such big hands. He's just obviously a god, and he doesn't talk like a 3-year-old and throw temper tantrums. Like
All of his sentences are intellectual and coherent.
They called him a god, but isn't there only one God? They didn't call him the God.
The God.
They're going to hell for that.
For God. Above God.
By God, under God,
These people-
inside God.
Yeah, these
God's
people
inside me now.
they're gonna have.
He's
Yeah,
filling
I've
my
always-
holes.
I've always
He's
loved.
filling my holes.
I've always loved the innuendos that people accidentally say about Jesus filling them. I feel the Spirit.
Feel it inside
Let
me.
Jesus come into you. Let Jesus come in you. Thanks for coming in me, Jesus. All right, so that was just a dumb little video of people thinking Trump is God. So now
No,
it's-
they said a God. I am going to keep pointing that out. If I ever meet him, I'll be like, you know what? God's looking down at you, and you're going to hell. All right, actually, you know what? I got another story.
Yeah, I know. I gave it to you because I said I was going to. the thing.
Josh just gave it to Joe.
Give it to me. All right, so NBC News by Phil Helsell. I don't care if I said that
That guy's
correct.
of the devil.
Sure is. So, a scheduled speech by a controversial Breitbart editor at the University of California, Berkeley led to violent protests that caused the event to be called off, the university said. The university said fires were set, including one caused by a firebomb that ignited a generator-powered spotlight, and commercial-grade fireworks were thrown at police. NBC Bay Area showed a group of people grab a metal barricade and smash it against a door. The violence was instigated by a group of about 150 masked agitators who came onto campus and interrupted an otherwise non-violent protest that was going on there at the exact same time. UC Berkeley said in a statement, some people were attacked and police treated 6 people for injuries, the university said. So this guy who came, his name isn't worth mentioning, said on Facebook that he was evacuated and blamed violent left-wing protesters. The university said the event was called off at around 6 p.m. local time amid violence, destruction of property, and out of concern for public safety. An estimated 1,500 people were outside the venue. Let's see. We condemn in the strongest possible terms the violence and unlawful behavior that was on display and deeply regret that those tactics will not overshadow the efforts to engage in legitimate and lawful protests against the performers' presence and perspectives, UC Berkeley said in a statement as well.
That's good of
But,
them.
yeah.
All right.
Do you want to talk about it
Sure.
a little bit?
Let's talk about it. So, I mean, and there's so much to grab a hold of. Like this storyline, that news article barely touches the storyline. So,
Yeah.
The dude who used to be a writer for Breitbart, probably around the same time that Bannon was in charge of Breitbart is when he started writing for them. He's somebody who's been kicked off of Twitter. So,
yeah.
First off, the issue that one of the issues is so the violence is who knows who did the violence. So let's get the conspiratorial shit out of the way first, because I think we should. We don't know who the masked men are. They're supposedly affiliated with the group who feels that that any speech like you should punch Nazis. This is the same group. You should punch Nazis in the face. People like the person who came to speak shouldn't be allowed to speak via any means necessary. So it comes out, this group, and again, no confirmed members, who knows who they are, is so far that left, I guess. They're so equal protections that they want to stop freedom of speech. So it doesn't meet a lot of the criteria of a normal group. Like if I was a protesting group, I would proudly put my name to whatever I was protesting. Yeah, and openly. So the way this plays out in the storyline is that, first off, there's this unpopular dude who says inflammatory shit on purpose, who goes around from campus to campus because conservatives are willing to pay to have him come there. And then what happens is there's protests against him. Or usually they're nonviolent protesters who are against the message that he's sending. There are also groups internally of those groups that are saying that he shouldn't be allowed to speak. Yeah. And then also Steve Bannon, who's Trump's top aide, who is fucking as I'm trying to think of the what's the name of the philosopher who was like this cold calculating guy? Machiavellian. He's as Machiavellian as they come. Yeah. And just coincidentally, he goes to speak at the same time, and then this riot happens where there's tons of shit smashed, and now it's being played on Fox News and all of the right-wing, and Breitbart, on all the right-wing media, that look at how bad the left is. Look at how terrible the left is. Yeah. And then Donald Trump comes out with a statement the next day saying that, oh, maybe we should take away funding from Berkeley. That is like so fucking stupid on so many levels. It's unbelievable how much bullshit we've had to wade through in this first 2 weeks of Trump's presidency. So who knows? Like they could be actual left-leaning people who have decided to become militant, or it could be that they're provocateurs, which Joe's talked about in the past. Yeah. I mean, just looking at the article?
It's been known to happen. I mean, it's not like it's never happened before. Provocateurs has. You can look up a bunch of CIA not articles, but information. Like they released a bunch of information recently online, and and it's in there. And lots of different administrations have done provocateuring. It's been around forever. It's a natural political move.
Yeah, and it's something that happened infamously during Martin Luther King's rallies. Yeah. So, and it's documented. Like, the documents on this are now public access. So, like, it did happen. It's not something that's unheard of. And I would not put it past a Machiavellian like Steve Bannon to do something like this. Yeah. And even like Robert Reich or Rich, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, who worked for the Clinton campaign, or he was like Bill Clinton's financial chair. Yeah. Who's really smart. And
he's an economist too, right?
Yeah, that's what he does. Yeah. And he said, he said something like, I wouldn't bet against it. Like, them being provocateurs that are paid or whatever. I wouldn't put it past them, or I wouldn't bet against it. And then Breitbart, like, right the next day, writes his paper about how he said that they were provocateurs without evidence, trying to slander Robert Reich, that he's pulling shit out of his ass. But he didn't say that. He said that I wouldn't bet against it. That's completely saying then different than saying it was definitely provocateurs. Yeah. The other thing, and this is something that I feel like I have to get out because I've seen too much shit online, and to call out a name, Steve Shives was totally fine with people getting punching Nazis in the face. He didn't, when I called him out on it, he didn't condone it specifically, but he said, I don't care. And that's just bullshit. Like, people's freedom of speech. Freedom of speech is a fundamental right. It's what we're going to use to stop people like Trump. It's what we're going to use to stop strongmen in the White House from totally taking power, is our freedom of speech. If you're against freedom of speech, especially if you use violence, then you're not on my team. You have deplorable morals if you think that you can take away someone's freedom of speech and that you can use violence to intimidate people. Like, that's bullshit.
It's absolutely hypocritical, and there's a double standard there. These people who want to use violence are freaking out at the person we shall not name because of the awful things he says, and I agree with them. I think the shit he says is awful, but you can't use violence to counter him. If you want to counter him, you have to counter him with arguments, protest, make signs, do all that, whatever. Well, but you have to let him speak. Well, if he's invited there, let him speak. Counter him with arguments, not violence.
Well, it's like what you said when you argue with somebody on Facebook. It's the same thing. Counter him with arguments. You might not change his mind, but you might change the mind of somebody listening.
Somebody is watching. And now, because there was violence, whether it was provocateurs or radical left people, the only thing people are talking about is the violence. Nobody is talking about what type of shit he talks about. Yeah. They're only talking about the violence.
Yeah, the violent left-wingers.
That's all anybody's talking about.
Yeah, and for good reason. Actually, if what appears to be on his face is that these are left-wing people who are against him talking at a campus, guess what? I'm with Milo. And I hate saying that, and I said his name, but if you know who he is, the best course of action, if you disagree with him, and he's coming to a campus near you, is to ignore him. If people are spouting shit that he says online, guess what? It's so easy to win these arguments, like against racists and against bigots, against anti-Semites, against people who are against the LGBTQ community. Like, it's so easy to dispute them. Like, they're protected constitutionally. The 14th Amendment states that, guess what? These people have rights and they should be protected. That same those same rights, that same 14th Amendment allows Milo to speak wherever he goes. And so, like, this is mind-bending how little people know about civics and shit. There was a case, Brandenburg v. Ohio, where Brandenburg in Ohio had a KKK rally. And this is back in 1969, and he said some really stupid shit, like someone ought to kill the president. It was on recording. They invited a person with a camera, and it was Brandenburg who hosted the event.
Okay.
So he gets charged with this crime, and it goes up through the court, and he gets charged with like inflammatory speech, or it wasn't conspiracy, but essentially inciting violence. And the Supreme Court, a liberal Supreme Court, mind you, stated, guess what? He has freedom of speech. He did not do anything that was going to cause anybody to do damage or to be violent towards the president at that time. He just said someone should kill the president. And I think it was Johnson back in that time frame. But the point is and the more interesting part of it, and this is the KKK. This is somebody who's definitely a KKK member and proud of it.
Yeah.
You know who defended him?
The ACLU.
Two Jewish lawyers who absolutely disagreed with his message. Absolutely. But understand that when you are protecting civil liberties, you protect everybody's civil liberties.
Yeah.
You don't just say, because then you do create a two-tier system. And we know how good human history is with a two-tier system. Just because you don't like someone's message doesn't mean you have the ability to take the right to speech away.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you don't think that that's a fundamental right, you're not American, or you're un-American.
Yeah. Christian or not.
Yeah. So, yeah, if you're on the left, and even if you're an atheist, then fuck you.
And we're not saying that, like we talked about the Nazi getting punched in the face. It's kind of funny to laugh at, but I'm not going to support somebody punching him in the face.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to punch him in the face.
Yeah.
Go protest.
Unless there's immediate danger.
Yeah.
But other than that, I'm not just going to walk up to somebody and punch him in the face.
And when you protest, don't protest his ability to speak. Protest the fucking message.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So now we're going on to our final news story, which is not Bowling Green. That was a funny one, though. Okay, so the situation that we're talking about is Donald Trump's travel ban. I've got 3 stories here, so I'm not going to quote one specific one. One's by the Washington Post. Actually, 2 are by the Washington Post, and the other one's by the New York Times. So what happens in the case, Donald Trump put a travel ban into place, which I'm sure everybody who's around nowadays and paying any attention to the news is aware of. That travel ban essentially blocked people with visas and green cards from entering in if they're from any of these 7 countries that were listed, including Iran and Iraq and Syria, etc. So, and actually the first story I'm going to refer to is from CBS News. It's federal judge temporarily blocks Trump travel ban. Seattle, a U.S. judge on Friday imposed a nationwide hold on President Donald Trump's ban on travelers and immigrants from 7 countries, siding with the 2 states that had challenged the executive order and has launched legal battles across the country. U.S. District Judge James Robart in Seattle News ruled that Washington State and Minnesota had standing to challenge Trump's orders, which government lawyers disputed, and said they showed their case was likely to succeed. About 60,000 people from affected countries had their visas canceled. So the reason why and I'm not going to get into the details of the stories because I have 4 of them to kind of cite. is that the travel ban is unconstitutional because when you get a green card and a visa, you're given certain rights, and those rights, the only way you can take those away is through via the Constitution. Is through you can't have your rights infringed upon unless you without due process of law. So without the due process, and the due process clause exists in both the 5th and the 14th Amendment, which states that once you have rights, those are yours. Like, you're recognized as a person having personhood or some level of being not a citizen, but a citizen type of being a person. Those can't be taken away. Like, unless you're tried and found guilty for something, then those rights can be revoked. So that's the reason why it's likely that Donald Trump's travel ban is unconstitutional. Is he can, within his legal scope, he can definitely stop any new visas or green cards going out. But once you have a visa or a green card, you have to go through a criminal trial or a trial to lose that right. So where this also matters is so moving forward, he immediately appealed to the circuit court to try and have his travel ban reinstated. And the Ninth Circuit Court has said, no, we're not going to do it until it goes through the full trial process. And sometimes what will happen is there will be an appeal up the ladder because it's a stay, meaning that it goes in place immediately, acting like it was always there until the courts hear it. So right now the travel ban should not be in effect. But now his appeal failed, so he can appeal it to the Supreme Court of the United States and let it get to whether the stay gets upheld there is going to be a good question, because if it gets upheld in the Supreme Court, then there's really nothing that he's going to be able to do. Now let's look at Donald Trump's Twitter, because that's apparently where America gets made great, right?
Yeah.
So he stated on February 4th, the opinion of this so-called judge, which essentially takes law enforcement away from this country, is ridiculous and will be overturned. So there's a lot of really funny things. So the opinion, it's not meant to be taken lightly. Like in science, a theory means that it's a working model that can be used to somewhat predict the future and also explain the past. An opinion of a judge is not like, I have an opinion on this. It's a legal standing paper that means that it's standing. And the so-called judge part is it's not like he's a so-called judge. He's a literal judge.
Yes. He just disagrees with Trump, and Trump is a child, so he's attacking the person and not the argument.
Yeah. And how does it take law enforcement away? If these people commit crimes, then that's when law enforcement takes place. To take away someone's rights without due process of law is what law enforcement is. Like, and that's the reason why we have the criminal process, is you have a right to be heard, you have a right to a trial, you have a right to a jury trial, you have inalienable rights, which means that these rights cannot be taken away unless there's a significant state interest or you've committed a crime. So, like, he has no understanding of the Constitution, of civics, or any of that.
Well, when he tweets, he's a fucking idiot. When he was talking to the Australian Prime Minister or whatever, Obama did this deal with him saying he would take over 1,500 refugees. So Trump talked to the Prime Minister and was like, that's a stupid deal. It's dumb. That's dumb. That's stupid. I don't want your refugees. And then went on Twitter to say something about illegal immigration. We're supposed to take all these illegal immigrants from Australia. And it's like, what the hell? Do you even know what you're talking about, dude?
Well, and he hung up on him, too.
Yeah. And the funny thing about that is the status of a legal immigrant is only a status that can be given to you by the government. So these aren't illegal immigrants.
Yeah.
Because they're legally taken. Like, that's just...
They're refugees.
Well, no, not even if they're refugees. Even, you can't... So, it's like, marijuana is bad because it's illegal. Why is marijuana bad? Because it's illegal. Why is it illegal? Because it's bad because it's illegal. It's a stupid round argument that makes no sense at all.
Yeah.
But the story, the last story I wanted to get to, the so-called judge criticized by Trump is known as a mainstream Republican, and this is by Thomas Fuller on the New York Times. The federal judge who blocked President Trump's immigration order is described by former colleagues and acquaintances as mainstream Republican, who went into a career as highly respected corporate lawyer in Seattle and to an appointment by George W. Bush to the federal bench.
Wow.
The order on Friday by the judge, James Robart, of Federal District Court in Seattle, reversed the president's executive order restricting immigration from 7 predominantly Muslim countries. It stirred the ire of Mr. Trump, who, in a Twitter post, which we read on Saturday, denigrated Judge Robart as a so-called judge and described the judge's order as ridiculous. So he's such a child. Like, it's sad. Yeah, a so-called judge. This judge is like on your side, dude. And even they didn't take any legal advice. They didn't talk to their Department of Defense. They didn't talk to the Department of Justice before signing this executive order and putting it into place. He didn't explain how it was going to be put into place. He just essentially signed this executive order which immediately stopped these bans from these countries. And they didn't know how to enforce it.
Mm-hmm. Didn't he consult Giuliani? That's what I heard, that he just consulted him.
Yeah, so it wasn't to consult him. He's like, how do we make this somewhat legal? Because he wants the Muslim ban in place. Like, he really wants it. He won't stop until he has some form of it, I don't think. And this is why it's going to be such an embarrassment for him and for our country, is because he's going to try and figure out a way to get it passed one way or another. And so he thought this was the way that he could do it, is by nationality instead of by religion. And it's God, he's such a moron. And he even stated, like, his absolute ignorance. He stated that, we'll prioritize Christians once we start lifting the ban. Then that becomes, on its face, it becomes a religious bill, which obviously is against the Constitution. And now you're invoking the First Amendment. And here's the scary part, because this could end up becoming a constitutional crisis. The last one that we've had that may be to this degree was back with Andrew Jackson. There was a trial where the Supreme Court of the United States recognized the sovereignty of the Sioux Nation in Florida and Georgia, and Jackson said, okay, you and what army? And what he did is, then the Trail of Tears is what followed. He took them and started marching them west until they were out no longer in Florida and Georgia, so he could give his homeboys some land. Like, Jackson is a deplorable person on many different levels. There's some things that you can respect about him, but as far as like human rights go, Jackson was one of the worst presidents that we've had. And one of the things that Donald Trump put up first in one of the first changes that he made that was notable is that he put up a portrait of Andrew Jackson either in his office or near one of his offices, where it was very predominant. Now, what would happen is, if he decides to go through with the ban anyways, after it goes through court and this stays upheld, because it will be upheld, because he's definitely in violation of the Constitution, is that, like, there's a couple different routes that this might go. The first one is that immediately the court can summon Donald Trump, and if he doesn't show up, then he's in contempt of court, which would be interesting. Because then at that point, then you can issue a warrant for his arrest, which again would be interesting, because like, then who's going to arrest him? He's got the Secret Service around him who answer to him only, because they're a department under his control, under the executive office. So you would never arrest him, but it would create this weird scenario where the people would be absolutely justified in calling on the House of Representatives to impeach him. And he might, because he's in violation of the Constitution, which is going to again be upheld, they wouldn't even need like a warrant against him to start that process. He would be impeachable at that point because he's in violation of the Constitution. So there would be impeachment, which I'm not a big fan of, and the 25th Amendment, which again I'm not a big fan of, because the 25th Amendment has never been used. It would be interesting to see how it plays out, but like, we're 2 weeks into a presidency. We're 2 weeks in. And we're talking about him being in contempt of court and creating a constitutional crisis that we haven't seen the likes of in 150 years. It's just, I don't understand like what Trump's doing or thinking. And the scariest thing is that if the Republicans refuse to try and go through the impeachment process, which they might, and they don't act on the 25th Amendment, who knows what the next election will look like, if we have a next election, because the things that look towards fascism, this is the most fascist-looking thing I've ever seen in my life. So, not to scare you. And Matt,
no, it's just interesting. It just shows you how ugly I think things have become in politics, in our government, in general. You know, the world is becoming a safer place. Statistically, there's less rape, there's less murder, all that sort of thing. But it shows you that we could lose all that. You know what I mean? That our society is fragile and it could possibly fall apart.
Well, and I think, science and critical thinking has a lot to do with less rape, less murders, and a more civilized society. And it is fragile. We can lose all that if people don't critically think, if people don't look at their politicians. I hate people who will vote blue no matter who, or vote red if you're dead, or I don't know. I imagine they have some fucking thing. But it's like, really take a look at your politician. After Bernie was knocked out and so many people voted for Hillary, I'm like, do you really think that's better?
Yes.
You honestly think that's better?
Donald Trump has
but no, looking at what Donald Trump has done, it's like,
I
think
still would have been awful.
Extremely awful. And that's the thing. But that's the thing. They got to where they were because people supported them.
Mm-hmm.
That's my point. You don't fucking support Hillary when there's plenty other people to fucking support. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If everybody would have just went over to Bernie, because if you really look at Hillary, oh my God,
Yeah,
and I know a lot of it's bullshit, and the right has been attacking her with all this crazy shit, but a lot of it's not bullshit. Mm-hmm. There is a lot of fucked up shit she's done. Look at your politician. If you see a different, better politician, move to them. Everyone's like, oh, well, no one's going to vote for them. And it's like, well, if we all moved to the good politician, we'd all be voting for the good politician.
Yeah, and that I mean, so I don't think it was Bernie's fault. I don't think it was the voters' fault. I don't think that
DNC.
I think that Hillary was obviously a flawed candidate, and it's easy to say that in hindsight. But I mean, to think about how flawed she lost to the most unpopular person who's ever run for president. He was by far the most disliked person of the Republican Party who ran. He had enough support because he had a populist message, so he had enough positive support to overcome the negative support to the place where he became the nominee. And then she was so fundamentally flawed in so many people's eyes, but the DNC and none of them were willing to see it. Like, they had fireworks all ready to go. They had a post-game show all ready to go. People were talking about cracking the glass ceiling, like, in speeches the day before the election was finalized or took place. Like, you can't assume that
they had their blinders on.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, listen to the people. If you listen to if you watched where people were showing up to, where the events were happening, it was obvious that Donald Trump was doing a lot better than it seemed.
Than Hillary.
Than it seemed. And Bernie Sanders, that by the same thing, I went to his campaign rally in Salt Lake City. Matt did too. It
was awesome.
And there were tens of thousands of people there.
They said over 15,000 people showed up in Salt Lake, in Utah, a conservative state. And when Bernie got there, what did he say?
This is supposedly or my friends tell me this is a very conservative state. But I mean,
and I guess they were wrong, and the fucking crowd lost it.
Yeah, and we're talking about we're in a place where it's no longer tenable to be taking corporate money or to be trying to be a corporate anything, Democrat or Republican. Obviously, the Republicans chose Donald Trump.
Yeah,
and had Bernie Sanders ran with his message, I'm sure that he would have won. Like,
all the polls suggested that he would have won by 2 digits.
Sure,
and when you look at the popular vote versus
percentage-wise
versus the Electoral College, we need a candidate that will slaughter the other side to win. Hillary won by around 3 million votes, but still lost. And if that same sort of trend continues, it happened with Bush and Gore, we're going to have to win by a shit ton of votes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you have to have a message that's going to resonate in those states, in Wisconsin and Ohio and all of the swing states, Florida, in order for that to matter. And they're not going to like somebody who's going, yeah, I'm a corporatist and I've taken money from donors and da-da-da-da-da, because they know you're a sellout. And the scariest thing about this is that it looks like the front runner to announce his presidency in the Democratic Party is another corporate Democrat. What's his name?
Is it Booker?
Yeah, Cory Booker.
Yeah, another fucking sellout.
Yeah,
and here's the people. A lot of the Democrats hopefully wisen up and don't be like, well, I'm going to vote for him anyway because he's blue.
Yeah.
Don't be that fucking retard. You're part of the problem. Do you understand why there's money in politics? Because of people like you.
But the main argument that I'm seeing for him now, like the primaries aren't even like close to happening again, and they're saying, oh, now you guys should. I saw this guy from somebody we all know say, now you guys are attacking Booker already, and you guys didn't learn from Hillary Clinton. It's like, no, you didn't learn from Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
You didn't learn that we're not going to go towards corporatism anytime. And even if you do go towards corporatism, you're going to lose in the general election.
Yeah.
Trump will beat
That's
that
why
guy.
Trump won.
And like I said in November after Trump won, he's going to get the next election. He's going to be in for 8 years. If
Cory Booker is the candidate, I am afraid of that.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. The fucking DNC, whoever wins the DNC, unless if it's a corporate Democrat who wins the DNC and becomes head of the DNC, they're going to be like, oh, look at how unpopular Donald Trump is. He's only got a 40% approval rating and a 50% unapproval rating. He's obviously going to lose, so we can run whatever candidate we feel like.
Watch that candidate take all this money from the banks for their campaign. Oh, wait, you don't like them? Oh, they lost? Oh, wonder how that happened.
Yeah, so the action...
I'm sorry. That whole shit with Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton just fucking pissed me off. There was no way in hell I was going to vote for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The DNC shot themselves in the fucking foot because they're stupid.
Yeah, and I wish that I wish that Hillary Clinton had won at this point because, I mean... Again, the question is what the next election looks like if we have one. Because if he's willing to sign an executive order and enforce it when it's been found unconstitutional, he could sign any executive order and support it, and it wouldn't matter what the courts say. It only matters if Congress is willing to go through the process, or the House of Representatives is willing to go through the process of taking.
There was a Facebook video on here somewhere, and it just said that he even was was signing an executive order and even admitted while he was doing it that he didn't even know what it said.
Yeah. Well, it's time to wrap up because I got a soccer game I need to go to.
I got to pee.
There was one other message that I wanted to leave you guys with. Just educate yourself civically. Like, once you understand, so my understanding of civics is pretty basic, and I feel like I know more than 90% of Americans. It's not that hard. I've only spent a year studying. And I've been doing it in a classroom, but once you learn the civics of it, this all starts to make more sense. And once we have a population that's more understanding of civics in general, I mean, that's when it will make sense why Donald Trump is so terrible.
Hear, hear. Thanks for listening, guys. Remember to go to Facebook, The Evil Atheists. Remember to find this podcast and listen to it. It's on Spreaker. It's on YouTube. Go, listen. We love you.
Yeah, leave a comment so we can read them on the thing next time, on the podcast next time. But
yeah, we want you guys to be more involved. Don't be scared to be involved. Just go ahead and do it and talk to us, and let's do this.
All right, take care.
See ya.
Peace.